Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to show you how to create a menu using Bootstrap 5's Navbar and HUGO, the static site generator. So let's get started. For this video, it's assumed you've already got HUGO set up and you can use Visual Studio Code, and you've imported Bootstrap 5 CSS and JS into your HUGO project. If you haven't got a HUGO project set up or you need help doing that, please see the link above and you'll see how I personally set up a HUGO project. During this video, you'll learn how to create a single level navbar using HUGO and Bootstrap 5's utility classes. You'll be able to customize the navbar's appearance using Bootstrap 5's utility classes. You'll be able to configure a single level HUGO menu using a config file, and you'll also be able to configure the menu using a page's markdown front matter. While we're configuring the menu items, we'll also be looking at the weight to change the display order. Now before we get started, if you haven't already got a HUGO project set up, you'll have to go to the link below for the Getting Started repository. The easiest way to get a copy of the code is a drop-down menu under Code and download a zip file. Once you've extracted that zip file, we'll be ready to start. Now before we get started, if you haven't already watched the video on setting up Bootstrap with HUGO, make sure in your project, in the footer I'm importing the Bootstrap JavaScript bundle, and in the head I'm importing the Bootstrap CSS file. So the first thing I'm going to do is look at creating a navbar template in a partial inside HUGO. So I've opened up the source code from GitHub. The first thing I'm going to do is open up the config file, and I'm going to change the name of the project to Bootstrap Navbar. And we'll save that. So if we look in our layouts folder inside partial, there's currently a partial for the header. I'm going to make a new partial called Navbar. I'm then going to head over to under default base of, and I'm going to disable header for now, and then we'll put in a new partial for the navbar. You'll notice I didn't put in .html. HUGO automatically resolves .html, so you can have much cleaner and leaner files by leaving it off. So I've put this link below in the description. Here's the Bootstrap 5 page for the navbar. Make sure you're in the Bootstrap 5 docs because the Bootstrap 4 code won't work. We're going to scroll down to the first example. You'll see here an example of a navbar. I'm going to copy and paste all of that code and I'll pop it straight into VS Code. So we'll go back to our navbar partial. I'm just going to paste that in and we'll save it. We'll then start up the HUGO server, and you'll see up there it's displayed just like on the Bootstrap website, but now we need to set up HUGO so that all of the menu items are generated by HUGO. So this is HUGO's menu templates docs page. It's not very clear. What we're going to do is we're going to copy everything and then we're going to trim it back to the bare minimum. So we'll ignore the aside part because we're using a nav. We'll copy from UL down to the bottom to the next closing tag for UL. Copy that and I'll paste it in just below the closing nav. I'm then going to use, on my Windows here, Windows Shift F to format the code. The only problem with this is you will get a space before the word main and you'll have to take that space back out. Alright, now we're not going to be doing a two-level menu, so in a moment I'm going to get rid of this first part, but before I get rid of that, there's a part missing from this example, and that's here, this list item, which has an automatic active state for the current page. So I'm going to copy that and I'm going to paste it down here. You'll also notice the example down here has pre and the example up here doesn't. So I'm just going to paste it below. I'll put that pre tag back in. I won't be using it in this tutorial, but it's useful to have there. I'll delete all of that and that end tag. We can get rid of current page, but keep the $sign. I'm going to remove these hard-coded links because I'll show you how to configure them through Hugo. You don't need to put them in as hard-coded links, although you're welcome to if you want to. So I'll delete that. So now we've got the basics of a menu for Hugo to generate. However, we're not using Bootstrap's utility classes. So first of all, I'm going to disable the search form. So Control-K-C on Windows to comment that out. I'm not worried about disabled links in this particular video, and I'm not worried about the drop down, so I'm going to clear that, and I'm going to keep the active link. I'll delete the standard one, and I think we're ready to go. So what I'm going to do now is this range in here, I'm going to cut that, head inside the unordered list for the Bootstrap navbar, paste that in. Just do a quick bit of formatting. Now we've got the Hugo template code here, and then below we've got the Bootstrap navbar code for a menu item. Now you'll notice on the Bootstrap LI, which stands for list item, they've got the class of nav item, but up in the Bootstrap one they have the active class. Now Bootstrap needs that active class to be on the A tag. So what I'm going to do to start with is I'm going to put a space before the active tag, and then I'm going to cut that code and place it into the A tag, the anchor tag. Alright, and then I'm going to cut the Bootstrap code and put it back in the list item. Now, see here we've got navlink and active, so I'm going to copy navlink for the anchor tag, and I'll place that in there. So by default, it will, every one of these anchor tags will have navlink, but only if it's a current menu item will it have active. Now here's a tricky one. We've got this ARIA current page which tells screen readers what is the current page for the menu. I'm going to cut that. This is where it gets a bit tricky, and I'm going to paste it in here next to active. I'm going to put a space in, and I'll remove that final inverted comma. So if it's not the active page, you'll have navlink and you'll have that closing inverted comma there, and if it is the current page, you'll have active. We'll close that off, and then we've got the ARIA current page. So the last thing I have to do is delete that Bootstrap class, which has all the parts missing from it. And now you can see inside the unordered list, Hugo will iterate over the main menu, and it will create a list item for every menu item. The exception is the current page will have an active class and the ARIA current attribute of page. So let's save that and check if it works. Alright, so everything's looking good. We haven't got any menus yet because the next thing we have to do is configure them. Now there are two ways we can configure the menu items. The first one I'm going to show you is using a configuration file. And we're going to use config.yaml. The YAML format is a little bit easier for beginners to understand than the TOML format. So in your Bootstrap project, you should have a config.yaml file down here. In a moment, I'll show you how you can split it out into multiple files. Because it's YAML, we're going to put in the heading of menu with a colon. You've then got to make sure you're indented by one tab, and we will put in main for the name of our menu, and I'll show you how that links up with the navbar partial in a moment. Now, inside that, go back a step so you're in line with the main, and we'll put in our first item. So the first thing I'm going to do is put a couple of external links in, and I'm going to set them to display over to the right of my menu. So the first one I'll do is, and the parameters are, the first parameter will be name. I'm going to put a link to GitHub, and then the second parameter will be URL, and we'll do www.github.com, and then we'll do a link to Google. Now the important thing here is to control the order that they're displayed in, we need to provide a weight. So I'm going to provide a weight for GitHub of 90, and then for Google 100. Now it's good to increment your weights in increments of 10, and that way if you decide to reconfigure your weights and reorder things, you don't have to go through and reorder every single item because you've got a wiggle room of 9 or 10 digits there. Before we continue, make sure after your navbar, after you've called the navbar partial, use a full stop, and that means that provides the entire context of your project to the partial, and then inside that partial it can access .site, and that's because we provided the dot, and through dot we can get .site. We're going to range over the main menu, and we've configured our main menu here. Now it's really important that we put a HTTP at the start of our link so HUGO understands they're external links and doesn't try to navigate to a page called www.github.com inside our project. So I'm going to hold down the Alt button, click at the start of both those URLs, and put in the HTTP component of the URL. So we'll save that and we'll go and check out the page. Alright, so they're both displayed and it looks like both the links are working. Now if we go into inspect the source, you can see here that HUGO's created 2 list items for each of those menu items. There is no active class inside either of those anchor tags, and that's because they don't relate to a page that's displaying. Let's now have a look at the config file and configure the 2 pages that are in this project. I like to put things generally in the same order as they appear in the navbar, although the order you put them in the config file will not affect the navbar. It's the weight we're really worried about. So put in name and we'll do home. URL, slash, and weight, we will display that first, so we'll put that a weight of 10. And we'll do about, slash about, and a weight of 20. Let's have a look. Alright, so all those pages are displayed and we can check the links so we can see they're working, although the active state isn't working on home. The next way that I'll show you how to configure it, it will work. If we look at the source, you'll notice that the URL is just a slash. In a moment I'll show you the second way to configure menu items. It will have the same URL, but it will pick up that it is the home page and we'll get an active state on that. So that brings us to the next part of this video, and that's configuring menu items using a page's front matter. So I'm going to delete out those 2 items from the config file, and then I'm going to open up the index page, and we're going to put a new item here in the front matter. The front matter is all of the parameters that sit between these dashes, and those dashes indicate we're using YAML. So the parameter is menu, and for a single level menu, all you have to do is specify the name of the menu, and that's going to be main. And then we can specify weight, and we'll give it a weight of 10 for home. I'm going to open up the about page, and we'll do the same thing. We'll give it a weight of 20. As you can see, the home button is darker. If we go to the about page, the about button's darker, and if we inspect, we can see there that we've got an active class added to the current tag, and I've also got the ARIA current page attribute there for screen readers. Now, because I've opened up the inspect developers tool panel, it's shrunken down the page and you'll see it automatically loads a mobile version of the toolbar. Now the next thing you need to be able to do is split the config file. This makes it a lot easier to access the menu configuration. So we've got to go back to our configuration, and you'll see we've got the menu section here. We're going to be taking that out and putting that into a new file. Before we do that, we need to make a new folder called config, and inside that, another folder called _default. I'm going to drag the configuration into there. I'll make another file called menu.yaml. I'm going to take all of this menu section and cut that and paste it into the menu file. However, because we're using a file which isn't named config, we take out the top level heading called menu, and we have to remove the indentation. So you can highlight everything and use Shift Tab in VS Code, and we can save that. Let's check if our website's still working. And it's looking great. And the last thing I need to be able to do is customize. We'll do some basic customizations to the navbar's appearance, and we'll first of all look at the Bootstrap 5 docs. All right, so having a look at the docs. So far we've already disabled the search field. I'm not worried about the drop down menu or the disabled menu link in this video. We'll look at customizing the word navbar and the link. Currently here is just a placeholder for the name and the actual URL. We'll then have a look. If we scroll down further, there's different colors we can use for the navbar. So we've got navbar dark and light, and that's the text color. If you use navbar light, you end up with a dark text, and if you use navbar dark, you'll end up with light text. And we can also control the background color. So we'll start off with the title and the link. And you can see the code for it here. So let's go back into HUGO. And we're in our navbar partial. So inside the link, we'll just put in a slash so it links to the home page. And inside navbar, we're going to put in the site's title. So if you put our curly bracket, opening curly brackets, site.title with capitals, and we'll close those braces. If you put in a dash at either end, it avoids any white space being written. And we'll save that, and let's have a look. And you can see it's coming up with the name of the site, which we renamed at the beginning of this tutorial. And we'll click on the link and it brings us back to the home page. Now looking at the different colors, we've got navbar light and navbar dark. Let's then have a look at the background colors that Bootstrap has available by default. So I'll put the link below to this Bootstrap docs page for background. You can see all these utility classes that are set up by default. If you look at my SAS video, you can see how you can modify these colors. One that I really like using is BG body, and that is the actual color that's been configured as your background color. So if you change a SAS variable, which it tells you here at the bottom of the page, the variables that you can target, if you change the background color of your site and then you configure your menu using BG body, which I'll do in a moment, we'll see whenever you change your site's background, the menu bar will change with it if that's the behavior that you want. So we'll start by doing a dark menu bar. So up the top, we've got navbar light and BG light. So we'll change both of those to dark. We'll save it. And you'll see there we've got the white text, which is our dark navbar, and the close to black background. It's a very dark gray. And again, you can configure those variables. Now, if you want your navbar to blend in with the background color of your page, no matter what that background color is, we'll change the background to BG body and navbar light. That's if you've got a light color as your page's background and you'd like a dark text on your navbar. And there you have it. The navbar is blending in with the background of the site. We'll inspect it. And we'll see under body, our background color is FFF for white. And we go into our navbar and BG body gives us triple F, which matches up. So there you have it. If you've got any questions or comments, please leave them below. And if you like the video, please subscribe and click the bell for regular updates. I release videos every week. Thanks for watching.